Levels in Revit are used to establish the heights and depths of objects inside of a Revit project. In this instance, we can see that we already have levels for our first floor as well as our top of plate, which I'm just abbreviating to be called top. If we would execute the wall tool, it would be possible for us to draw the walls in at the first floor level. Now, if we did that, the walls would need to know how tall they needed to be. In this instance, since we would have a level up above it, we could tell the walls to go up to the top of plate level, which is really where your walls are typically going to stop if you're dealing with the first floor of the building. Because these different levels end up are associated with these different objects, and we have a basement area as well, we need to draw in some extra levels in order to be able to, one, host those objects so that they have something to sit on, and two, it'll also give them an elevation height at which they'll be drawn in at. Next, we need to add the additional levels. These levels are pre-calculated to make the building structurally sound and give it the proper aesthetic appeal. So I'm going to come up to the level tool up here and select on level. Now I know for a fact that we're going to have 6 more levels that come in underneath the first floor. So I'm going to draw in 6 more levels here. Now don't worry about the fact that it's called level 13, level 14, level 15. We will be renaming those. And they're going to be renamed to correspond with the different kinds of objects as well as the different kinds of floor plans that might be related to those objects inside of the Revit project. Now it looks like we have 2 more to do, so I'm going to draw in 1 and 2 right here. Now I'm going to zoom in on this side, and we need to rename these levels now. This one is going to be called top of foundation. Now it's pretty self-explanatory name there because this is going to be where the top of your foundation walls are going to come up to. If it asks, would you like to rename the corresponding views, just say yes to that. What that does is it will add the name over here in the project browser. We're going to click on level 14 next, and we're going to name this basement ceiling. Of course, that's where the basement ceiling is going to be sitting on when it's all said and done. The next one is going to be abbreviated, and it's going to be just called TOF, and in this case, it's not top of foundation, it stands for top of footing. And this footing is going to be supporting the front porch that we have on the front of the building. The next one, we're going to rename this one basement, and this is going to be for our basement floor. The one underneath that is going to also be called TOF, but I'm not going to add a little dash after it. The reason is that this is going to be our main footing depth throughout the project. I'll go ahead and rename those views as well. And then finally, I'm going to rename this also a TOF, and this is going to be walkout. And the idea behind this one is that this is going to be the walls that go below the frost line of our building. So in case you are in an area where you end up having a lot of freezing and thawing, the building will still be structurally sound, and the footings that are supporting the walls up above aren't going to be moving around a lot. So it needs to be deep enough, which is why we're creating this level. Now we also need to be able to set the elevations for each of these. Now I'm going to start with this TOF walkout, and I'm going to make this be negative 11 foot 5 inches. It just happened to be close when I drew it in. This next one is going to go down negative 9 foot 1 inch. So make sure to always put that negative sign in. It's probably the number one mistake that I find that people do is they forget to put that negative sign in and wonder why it goes up to be 9 foot 1 inch above their first floor. That's obviously not going to work too well for the footings of your building. Now we are going to have the basement elevation, but you can see a little bit of an issue here because I can't easily get to this number right here. I might be able to click and get it to work. But in order to be able to reach out and touch it a little bit better, I'm going to select on this level here, and I'm going to click on the little break symbol. And you can see how it dropped down that top of footing elevation. Now it didn't really change the elevation, it just changed the marker for the elevation. But it's going to allow us to get in here and click on that number fairly easily, and also allow us to read that number fairly easily. Now I'm going to change this to be negative 8 foot 9 inch. You can see how it raises that level up. And we'll go ahead and clean this up here in just a minute so that these aren't touching each other. You have the top of footing at the porch. This is going to need to be negative 4 feet 9 inches. Next, we're going to select on this basement ceiling level and see if we can click on this. It looks like that we can. And this should actually be -1 foot 8.5. So I'm going to type in -1 foot 8. And I could do a space and 1/2, or you can just type in 0.5, either one, that'll work just fine. And you can see how it raises it up. It's now at the 1 foot 8.5 inch dimension. Now that crossed over another level, which is our top of foundation here. And this needs to be at -1 foot 1 inch. You see how that brings that up? And this has all of our levels at the appropriate elevation marks, but we still can't read all these numbers just quite right. So I'm going to select on one of these levels, and there's these little break symbols shows up here. I'm going to click on the little break symbol, and I'm going to pull this up a little, pull this over, in order to help clean this up, make this be very easy to read. Select here where it has the basement ceiling here, click on the little break, move this over, move this piece over to here. We can read the top of foundation. Now I always like to keep these things nice and clean and lined up. So I'm going to select where we have our first floor, click on the little dot and just drag this directly over. Whenever you have this blue dashed line coming straight down, you know that this is all going to be lined up. It looks like our top of foundation here is just a little bit off, so I'm going to click on that as well and drag that over. You can see it has that dashed line that shows up, so we know that that's lined up as well. And with this first floor, it's kind of overlapping, so I want to clean that up too and drag this dot up. And we'll zoom out to make sure that it's looking okay. One last thing, I always like to have these lines lined up too, and you'll find that a lot of people that work inside of architecture offices, out in construction trailers, they like to see that too. So we'll go ahead and clean that up and get all those levels lined up, and it'll look the same in the flip view of this as well in the south elevation if we would look at it in there. That being said, since we've created these levels now, and in our future exercises, we'll be able to use these to begin drawing our building objects in at the proper elevations. Now let's move on and start creating the actual objects we're going to be placing in the building.